Hello Pipe community, Barepipe here. Before I get into today's episode, I wanted to do just a little bit of housekeeping. You know, I am a very small fish in the YouTube pond, but sometimes the small fishes gets noticed by the bigger fish, and that can be quite amazing. So that's exactly what happened to me a couple of weeks ago. After I posted my last video, CaneRodPiper, who is one of the bigger fish in the YTPC, gave my channel a shout out, and the results have been pretty amazing. So I wanted to publicly say thank you to CaneRodPiper for doing that. And I thought by way of passing on my gratitude, I wanted to give my own shout out. And I wanted to pass you on to RealMcCoyPiper. He has recently taken his channel in a whole new direction. And I really admire and respect what he's doing. So I wanted you to go and check it out and encourage you to subscribe to him if you haven't done so already. What he's doing is a pretty brave move to do on YouTube. So go check him out, please. So on to today's episode. I want to show you this. This is a Parker estate pipe. It's a straight apple, as you can see, that I bought a couple of months ago on eBay. And this is my next pipe project. Now, as you have discovered so far, if you've been subscribed to me, is I love to tell the story of the pipe before I start working on the pipe. So I'm going to tell you the story of the Parker Pipe company today. But before I do that, let me quickly show you what I'm planning to do to this pipe. There's not a huge amount of work to do on this one. There's a little bit of damage and a couple of spots on it. Just little dents that I can steam out. There is fairly nice grain on it. It has a bit of a bald spot here, which I suspect is why this ended up as a second. And then the biggest problem, and I don't know if you'd be able to see this, is there's a bit of charring and damage to the inside edge of the rim. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to top the bowl just to get rid of some of it, but I'm going to do very minimal topping. I never top more than the bare minimum. And then I think what I'll do is I will actually bevel the inside edge of the bowl to be able to get rid of some of this charring that happened in here. It's actually kind of created a bit of a bevel already. You know, it's always fascinating when you look at an old estate pipe. You can see the guy who had this, he always burned his pipe here and here. You can see how he handled the pipe led to him always burning his pipe on a diagonal. These two sides are barely damaged, but these two sides are quite charred up. So that's kind of fascinating. It's got a great fit on the stem still. It's a nice and tight fit. Stem has got a nice clean open draw, so that's going to be great. And then the other thing that's going to be interesting is I have, again, like I did with the Rob Edel, I have to reinstate the logo. The paint color on the logo is gone, so I have to fill that in again. So that's going to be interesting. It's very faint, so I have to be very careful with the sanding so that I don't actually take the logo off altogether, because it is extremely shallow. I don't think I'm going to re-stain this pipe. I think what I'm going to try to do is just clean it and see how it goes. And I'm hoping not to sand it down. I want to see if I could steam out some of these dings. I could get away with maybe not sanding it. I prefer not to. Because it's a Parker and I don't want to lose the logos. I don't want to be, you know, this logo on the stem is so close to the shank that I'm worried that if I do a lot of sanding here, I'm going to end up damaging that. So it's going to be an interesting one. So I'll keep you posted as this moves along. First thing will be, let's finish the stem, get that done. Second one will be top the bowl, bevel the rim, of course clean the bowl and the shank and everything. It's not actually in a bad condition. It doesn't need to be reamed very much, just needs to be a bit of a cleanup, I think. And then it's going to be steam this out, clean this up with some oil soap. And maybe in this one, what I'll show you is how I do cleaning on a bowl that I don't want to be restaining. And that'll be an interesting one to see. And of course, when you top the bowl, there's going to be a challenge to see how one can blend these in with each other again so that they match up. So that's the Parker. So the story goes something like this. Alfred Dunhill creates his famous Dunhill pipe brand at the beginning of the 20th century. It's built and designed and branded to be the ultimate in pipe manufacturing, the ultimate quality, a perfect pipe sold for an expensive price. By 1910, he has his own factory set up, he's producing his own pipes, and he has a very stringent quality control process to ensure that that brand standard is maintained. The unintended side effect of that is a lot of good product gets thrown away. Some of that good product is good enough to make a very decent pipe. So initially, he solves that kind of unwanted waste, I guess, by allowing some of those pipes to go through, to be completed, and then instead of just stamping it as Dunhill, he stamps it with a cross or damaged over the Dunhill stamp to denote it as a substandard pipe. Now, there are two problems with that. Practically, the problem was keeping track of these substandard pipes through the process and not losing them. The other problem, which was a much bigger problem, was that he was diminishing his own brand, because now he is putting effectively Dunhill pipes out there that were substandard. So he solves it in a way that created a precedent for every other pipe manufacturer out there since. He creates a second brand. And the idea of the second brand is that it has a less stringent quality control standard, so you can capture some of that really good quality product that didn't quite make the Dunhill standard and use it in this one, but then you can also pitch to a broader market at a lower price point. It essentially creates a mass market pipe. So in 1923, he creates Parker Pipes, which is his mid-market mass appeal alternative to his expensive high-end brand. It happens to also be capable of catching some of the failings that comes out of the Dunhill shop that's still good enough to make the Parker standard. So initially, they operate out of the same address up until 1935. And in 1935, what happens is that Dunhill builds a brand new factory for expansion. He also buys a 49% share in a competitor, a company called Hardcastle. Now, he builds his new factory right next door to Hardcastle. And when they move, Dunhill as a brand moves into the new factory. Parker as a brand moves in with Hardcastle. And it makes sense because Hardcastle is also pitching in the middle of the market, same as Parker does. Now, that kind of sister relationship between the two factories continues right into the 1950s. In fact, actually into the 1960s, I believe. And I may be wrong on that date. But by 1967, Dunhill purchases the rest of the Hardcastle shares, and they merge Hardcastle and Parker as a single brand. And then the brand disappears for a while, and it comes back in 1991 as an economy brand. Now, the big question that everybody debates about Parkers are, if you buy a pre-67 Parker pipe, are you in fact buying a Dunhill? And you have two camps on this. Some people say absolutely, and some people say absolutely not. And I think the answer is kind of one of those fudged answers. Well, not quite, but maybe. And the reason I'm saying that is this. There was not enough failings coming out of the Dunhill shop to be able to supply the market demand for Parkers. So Parker sourced its own briar and produced its own shapes even, that was independent and separate from Dunhill. They also happened to take in some Dunhill failings. So there was a chance that the pipe that you bought as a Parker could have been a Dunhill, but it could also not have been. And besides that, if you bought a Dunhill failing, the chances were good that it got ejected out of the Dunhill process fairly early on, so it wouldn't have been treated like a Dunhill pipe. So it really wasn't a Dunhill. Parker was an innovative brand in and of itself. It had its own patterns that it created, its own shapes that it's created, and it's clear that Dunhill always intended for Parker to have its own brand presence in the market. They invented some interesting products that are collectible in and of themselves today. You know, the famous Backy Flap, which is made out of Bakelite, was invented by Parker Pipes. They had this kind of interesting, quirky, you know, the word Backy Flap just reminds me of this now. They had this interesting, quirky brand identity that they had built with these kind of tongue-in-cheek names that they gave to products. They had a cigar case, for example, that popped out one cigar at a time with a mechanism, and it was called the One-Up. Their ashtrays had names like Knockout and Snuff Out. Their tobacco pouches was called, Roll Tight and Slim Zip or something like that. Slim Rip, sorry, that's what it was Slim Rip and Wide Rip for a big and a small one. So they had these kind of quirky brand identities that they created around their products. And I think that's the key point about Parker Pipes. Parker Pipes produced excellent quality pipes. They produced them because they were a brand in and of themselves that had identity and presence, could stand on their own feet. They weren't good quality because they were Dunhills in all but name. They were good quality because they were Parker, and they came from the heart of a man who was concerned about quality. It was a brand that was created by Alfred Dunhill, but it wasn't meant to be a Dunhill. It was meant to be a Parker. And I think if you look at Parkers like that, they're actually fantastic pipes. Now, in the estate market, you can pick up a pre-67 Parker pipe. If it's a date-stamped pipe, which is what they call the patent era pipes, they can be quite expensive. They can go over $100 easily. If you pick up a post-patent era Parker that doesn't have a date stamp on it, it can be a little cheaper. And then, of course, you can go and buy a new Parker today. They're not expensive. They're a little rare in the US. There are some online retailers that sells them, and they would retail brand new around $65 to $80 US. You can buy them in Europe. They're quite common and quite easily available. In the UK, they sell for around £25 for a pipe. So it's an affordable pipe, but it's a good quality pipe with a good pedigree behind it and a good history behind it. So I would encourage you to explore the brand and to try out a Parker and see what you think. So on that note, I'm going to wrap it up on this episode. Once again, if you're a new subscriber who's just joined me because CaneRod gave me the shout out, thank you for joining. I hope I'm not going to disappoint you, and keep watching, and hopefully we learn something together. Thanks.